What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of To Build a Bronco. Today we have one of my favorite interviews that I've done so far. Even though it's taken like a month because of technical reasons and reschedulings, but we finally got it out, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Finally. Now,
All right, here we go.
Has it been like a whole month trying to get this episode
Round
out?
3, here we go.
Yeah. For those of you who don't know, we had technical issues with the TriCaster. Never using that again.
Right. That's all we can do. Got it worked out. I'm here.
Yep.
Let's see if we can make it happen this time.
Yes.
Make it stick this time.
I can't wait for this episode to finally come out.
Right.
All right. Let's start with the basic questions. What was your journey from childhood to becoming a teacher here at Banning High?
So, that's a pretty long story. I'll start with after high school. Right.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
after I got out of high school, I went straight into the workforce. I was a power lineman for a few years, and then I ended up getting hurt, having a couple knee surgeries,
Oh, wow.
and then going into a non-union prevailing wage apprenticeship program to be an electrician.
Okay.
Yeah, so the program was 8,000 hours. You go and you work for a company all year long. You have to go to school twice a year for 2 weeks at a time, but you get paid while you do it.
Yeah.
So the way you bank your hours is every hour you work, that's an hour that goes towards your apprenticeship, right?
Okay.
So 8,000 hours, it roughly equals out between 4 and 4.5 years, all right? So between, that 4 and 4.5 years, at the end of that, you take what's called is your California State electrical certification.
Yeah.
And once you pass that, you become a journeyman electrician.
Okay.
So anyways, I went through the apprenticeship program, right? Then I moved on to being an electrician. I was doing electrical for the past 16 years. And then my cousin 2 years ago, I have a cousin who was a troubleman for Edison. He was actually killed on the job.
Oh, wow.
So, I've got a family. I've got 2 kids, and I'm married.
Yeah.
And I've had a couple close calls, nothing major. But once something like that happens that close to you,
Yeah.
it opens your eyes. It changes things. You know what I mean? Because you every morning you leave, everybody expects you to come home, right?
Yeah.
And the more dangerous your work is, the higher the chances are that you might not come home, And after that, after my cousin that I grew up with passed away on the job, working as a utility electrician, I kind of had to take a step back and reevaluate things, right?
Yeah.
So, it was good. I am very fortunate where I am now, right? I couldn't have walked into a better situation with this school, this district, the facility, the tool, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
it's like winning the lottery. This is my very first year teaching.
Yeah.
And for a guy that was on a construction site literally 1 year ago to today,
Yeah.
I was on a construction site, you know what I mean? And to be on a construction site to the following year, I'm in a facility like I'm in with tools and the kids that I'm in with, like it's amazing. You know what I mean? I'm very thankful for it.
It's crazy how fast things can change when you change your mindset too.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, changing your mindset is one thing, but you have to see it through. You know what I mean? Because if you don't see it through, like I could have got halfway here and then just kind of got lazy and fell off or whatever, and then probably wound up having to go back to construction. But it affected me that bad to where this was something like I wasn't turning back from, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it didn't matter how far I was, this was my end goal, and I was going to make it there some way.
Yeah.
So
Do you think that people who go into construction then get stuck in a routine and they realize that they feel like they can't get out of what they're in?
No, that's a very good question, because I actually felt like that for a long time. Is once you get comfortable doing something every day and you get into a daily routine doing it, it's hard to break the cycle. It's hard to stop, look up, look around, figure out what's going on, and say, hey, maybe I'm gonna take this pathway today, or how about instead of doing this, I'll do this today.
Yeah.
Once you get in a rhythm and you start doing it every day and it works and it's comfortable, it's hard to, it's hard to break that rhythm, and it's hard to break that cycle to adventure to something that's to unknown, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
because we're definitely creatures of habit.
Creatures of habit, and we are to a fault, you know what I mean? So,
creatures of habit and have a fear of the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Well, what was your impression of the students since you started teaching here this year?
So, I wasn't sure what to think when I first got here, to be honest with you. I have always been able to get along with mostly everybody, right, throughout my life and stuff. But I wasn't sure, just because the generation now is so different from the generation that I come up in. You know what I mean? I hate to say, well, I walked up to school both ways, uphill to school both ways in the snow, but it was more of like dog eat dog when I went to school. It was either you do or you don't.
Okay.
There was no like, well, if you don't, then maybe we could try that. It was either you do or you don't.
Yeah.
And there was no in between. There was no failure plan, or if this happens, then well, you can always do this. It wasn't like that. You know what I mean? And today there is so many buffers and loopholes and contingency plans for everything, which don't get me wrong, like that's cool. I wish they would have had that when I was coming up, but they didn't. And so the kids these days, I feel that they rely on a lot of that stuff a little too much, so I didn't know how I was going to get along with them, right? I'm not gonna lie, my first couple weeks, I was pretty nervous, but I was able to sense a lot of the kids right away. And because like every single one of them sizing me up, seeing how I'm gonna do, because I'm a new teacher. They had my class day last year with a different teacher, right? So they're testing me out as well as I'm testing them out, you know what I mean? But I don't know what it is. The kids here at Banning, they're not too proud to stop and say, hey, Mr. K, you're doing a good job today, or you know what I mean, like that. And that's just cool. Like that feedback means a lot to me. So it really helps when you are the new guy on campus, right? But the kids still take the time to let you know that you're doing it right. So you know what I mean? It makes it that much easier. So
it's always good to get good feedback from kids, because they are definitely the most truth way of saying stuff.
Yeah. It's like if you want to know the truth, ask a kid. But anyways, so yeah, and a lot of my students do call me out when I'm wrong. It's very seldomly, but because I'm usually never wrong. But
all right, what's one thing that you wish students will learn from your class, even if they don't go into the construction?
Respect. It'd have to be respect. I'm big on respect. Um, I just, that's how I was raised, is you respect your elders, you respect the people around you. Even if you don't like somebody, you still respect them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
It definitely feels like the world is going back to that after we've been gone from it for a couple of years.
oh yeah. And, you will find a lot of times in life, you will get further in a situation where you show somebody respect versus the opposite,
Yeah.
right? So even if you don't get what you want out of the situation, when you show respect, there's still that aspect of mission, like mission accomplished. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's, I hope that's one of the things that the kids, at least take away from my program after, being in it for the year, is showing respect, just respecting everybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Taking the time out of day to let somebody know when they're appreciated, and simple things like that. So
It's definitely crucial during high school years too.
oh yeah, there's my class is crew based. We're constantly doing projects as a crew for everybody. You know what I mean? And it's if the students don't respect the other crew members that are in their crew, then they won't get anything done.
Yeah.
They'll try to pass the buck off on somebody else all the time. But when there's mutual respect in the crew,
Yeah.
you will find that everybody will stand up and do their part. So it's pretty cool.
And then once you have respect with your crew, it makes it fun and engaging.
Oh yeah, and that's one of the other things that I hope that kids are able to learn in my class is having fun. Right now, there's only a certain amount of fun you can have on a construction site while being safe, right? But not just having fun, but enjoying it, making things enjoyable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It seems like society nowadays, everybody hates what they do. Nobody enjoys what they do anymore,
Yeah.
And we got to bring that back. Whether, I don't know what the solution to it is. I don't know if it'd be like higher pay, less hours. I don't know what it would be.
I think a part of it would be AI. Because then AI can take a lot of the boring job for us, so we can have time to do more passionate, creative things. As
No, absolutely. And, just bringing the enjoyment back to the workplace.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
All right. Well, I guess I came up with this new one too.
Nice.
How do you hope the students will remember you after they graduate?
Oh, man.
This will be an interesting perspective for a teacher who's not even finished the year yet.
Right. Yeah. That's that. Yeah. The only thing I can hope is that they do remember me. Really.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I am just a construction CTE teacher, right? So I'm not like the math teacher or history or chemistry. I'm kind of its own thing. But I hope it's nothing but good thoughts, if they do remember me.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I hope whoever takes my class at least learns something. You know what I mean? Whether it's a way to go into a career or even just how to hang up a picture, right? Like just something. And it can be the smallest of things, right? So, yeah, I just hope that they do remember me.
Yeah. Well, what was one expectation you had of teaching here, and how was that different from reality?
Oh, wow. So, one expectation I had is I thought it was going to be easier to control the work that takes place in the workshop, right?
Okay.
But once you start mixing in personalities and certain behaviors from certain students. And some students are shyer than others. Some are more outgoing.
Yeah.
You get a big mixture of just different scenarios for every single person, right?
Yeah.
Where on a construction site, we're all adults, and mostly everybody, has got their stuff together,
Yeah.
and they do what they're supposed to do all the time, right? Because they're getting paid.
Yeah.
If not, you'll get fired, right? So when we come to a school setting, getting into the workshop, I was thinking it was going to be like running a crew on a job site. Well, it couldn't be the furthest thing from that. It's, you still have to discipline people. You still have to, even tell people to be quiet and listen, or to sit down, stop playing with their shoes, or stop touching other people. You know what I mean? And like, you don't have to tell people that stuff when you're on a job site, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big change that I, overlooked. So
Yeah. Is there a feeling of like you have a bigger duty to teaching these kids as compared to a construction crew because they're growing adults?
yeah, absolutely. So that was another thing, is in my years of working construction, as the new generations came in, you could tell something was missing. And, I don't know what it is. I don't know what the answer is. But my thought was, if I could get myself in a position to help the generations as they're coming in,
Yeah.
to give them what they're missing. You know what I mean? I don't want to say kids aren't as tough as they were back when I was in school. It's just a different mentality, right?
Yeah.
If you cut your finger, you just keep working, right? As nowadays, if you cut your finger, you have to stop and report it, right?
Oh, yeah.
Because if not, there's consequences if it were to get infected, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Well, back when I was very first coming into the trades and stuff like that, man, I could remember like cutting myself pretty bad or smashing my finger and then just not saying nothing and keep working throughout the day, put some tape on it or something. And the next day, the boss would be like, "Oh, what happened to your finger?" And it's like, "Oh, I smashed it yesterday." He's like, "Oh, okay, well, all right, get back out there, get to work," Now you can't do that. Now it's like, okay, well, let me see it. Okay, let's write up an incident report. Now let's send you to the hospital, and it's so much more nowadays.
Yeah.
So, it's just one of those things. But trying to get the kids back to where they have what they need to show up on a construction site day one is that's why I'm here, is to figure out what they're missing and try to give that to the kids. So to try to bridge some of that gap. So
Do you ever learn anything back from the generation?
yeah. So AI, you just brought it up.
Yeah.
All that stuff is new to me, you know what I mean? I know it's still new in the world, but I'm not that old, but I still have kids that come into my class and they show me new stuff every day, you know what I mean? And I'm kind of blown away. But I was in the generation where nobody had a cell phone. Like I was right on that edge, like after I graduated a couple years, then that's when everybody started getting cell phones and stuff like that.
Oh, wow.
So don't get me wrong, when I was in high school, you could have a cell phone, but it was few and far between. It wasn't as common as nowadays. Like pagers were huge when I was in school, you know what I mean? And so then there was a few year gap there to where cell phones started to come in. People still had pager, and so on and so forth. And then, but anyways, yeah.
Okay. Well, we got one more serious question, then we got the fun questions.
Perfect.
What do you think makes a person truly successful in life?
Being happy in their situation, no matter what that situation is,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't matter if you make $100 million a year or $100 a year. If you enjoy your life, enjoy what you do, the people you're surrounded by, your quality of life would be so much better than a person who makes a ton of money but hates what they do, can't stand their significant other,
Yeah.
has kids but don't want them, just has a group of friends that they were just thrown into that, they didn't choose.
Yeah.
It's all about quality of living, and the happier you are in your situation, no matter the situation, the better off you're going to be able to live. So,
Okay. Well then, I just realized too that our second part we recorded had a bunch of the fun questions in it. So I'll bring in some more serious ones.
okay.
And depending on the time, I'd say we go to 3:10.
Yeah, 3:10 will be fine. That way I could get back over and
Yeah.
let the
Alright.
kids back in.
Okay. I got a funny and then a serious.
Okay.
Is eating Cheetos dust off your finger considered ill-mannered?
Well, I would say it all depends on what you were handling before the Cheetos.
Okay.
And if you wash your hands or not, right?
Yeah.
If you're a surgeon and you're done with work for the day and you take off your gloves, wash your hands, and go sit down and eat some Cheetos and then eat the dust off your fingers, I'm sure it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're a construction worker and, you're out trying to land iron on a high rise
Yeah.
and you are snacking on some Cheetos and eating the dust off at the same time, you might get a little extra iron in your diet, but,
Yeah. What about in a situation where you're hanging out with your friends or other people and there's just happens to be Cheetos there and you're eating them? In that instance, is it ill-mannered to eat the dust off?
are you going to be reaching back in that Cheeto bag to grab a second handful? If you are,
Well, then, yeah.
I would suggest using a napkin. But if you're just going to grab a handful and go, clean up your hands. If you don't have a napkin, sure.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, there's no issue with that. As long as you're not going to reach back in that bag with that same
Yeah.
hand. So,
Do you prefer spicy or regular Cheetos?
Flamin' Hot.
Yeah. I actually like Flamin' Hots over anything like Takis,
Yeah.
which is probably
I can't
a
do
hot topic.
Takis. Yeah, I can't do Takis. My daughters love them, but I can't do them.
They were all right, but there's something about the Cheetos that have a different taste, kind of.
Yeah, they have that
Texture and stuff.
cheese, that like cheesy taste to them that I like, but it's
Yeah.
still spicy,
Yeah.
So,
I love using hot Cheetos when I'm sick because then that runs my nose more.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's a quick tip there.
Yeah,
Hot Cheetos is
that's
also
actually a
medicine.
good tip. I never even thought of that.
Yeah. All right. If you could instantly master any skill, what would it be?
Ooh, that is a good one. I would say printing money, but seeing how this is,
Yeah.
Look at that work. I love you.
What was that?
that's my daughter. That's my daughter on my phone telling me to have a good day at work.
Oh, that's
Perfect
awesome.
timing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk to her back
Okay,
real
yeah.
quick. Hey, perfect timing. I'm recording a podcast right now, so everybody got to hear you.
How does that work?
It's like a push to talk radio
Oh,
that the
what?
Apple Watches have.
Oh, so it's live.
Yeah.
I thought it was like a voice message she was sending you.
No, it was actually her talking to me. It's like a two-way radio, but the Apple Watches have it. You just push down the button. You can talk to anybody that you have their contact.
Wow, I never knew that. I may want to get one now.
Yeah, no, it's pretty cool.
How long
But-
have you had that?
I've had it since Christmas, actually. My wife got it for me for a Christmas present.
Wow.
One of the things I always said is I'm not the person that can strap a cell phone to my wrist.
Yeah.
I've already got one in my pocket, right?
Yeah.
Well, she ended up getting it for me. For Christmas. And so I started wearing it. Well, man, it does so much more than just having your phone. It actually told me I have sleep apnea. I wasn't aware of that. But yeah, so that's, something I'll be getting tested for here shortly. So,
Oh yeah, back to the question.
back to the question.
What kind of skill would you want to learn?
Oh yeah. So, man, I would have to say,
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were
I would have to say,
in a podcast.
I would have to say, I would want to master a trade. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever heard the saying, "Jack of all trades, master of none."
Oh, I think I've heard that. Yeah.
So that's kind of like my situation. You know what I mean? Like I know how to do a wide variety of things.
Yeah. What's a hobby or passion you have outside of teaching?
So, well, before I had kids or after? Before I had kids, I used to, ride dirt bikes, snowboard.
Okay.
I used to go to the gym, play baseball. I had a ton of sports that I used to do. After I had kids, now I go to cheerleading practice. I have one of my daughters is in jiu-jitsu, so that's pretty cool for me.
Dang.
They do have a little side-by-side, a razor that I take them out to the desert with.
Okay.
That my oldest daughter was in baseball. She tried that for a couple years and she didn't really like it, so kind of sat that off to the side. But now
Yeah.
she's trying jiu-jitsu, so that's kind of stuff that I've been doing as hobbies.
Well, I mean, it's fun for you, right?
Right. If I had it my way, I would still be snowboarding
Yeah.
and, I'd still be riding dirt bikes and doing all that stuff. But,
Yeah.
kids come first. So that's what I've been doing lately.
So your hobbies is their hobbies.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's fun for me. I get to go watch them progress from, where they start to where they are today. It's pretty cool.
All right. Is there something that you do that would shock the students?
Oh, man. Yeah, probably a list of stuff. Man, where do I begin? I'm a pretty good karaoke singer.
Really?
Oh yeah.
What kind of music do
I have
you
this
sing?
weird talent is rap music from the late 90s to all the way to like 2010.
Okay.
I know mostly every lyric to every song.
What?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know. I just have, when it comes to music lyrics and songs,
Yeah.
I have this weird memory where if I hear a song one time and I like it, like I know.
recite it,
Yeah,
just
I
like
just
that?
pick up all the words. Like, it's crazy.
Dang.
I don't know.
How often do you karaoke?
Oh, I don't anymore. Well, I do with my kids, but, that used to be a evening thing on the weekends.
Oh, okay.
When I was younger, but.
All right, then. How did you get your name, Kinkade?
How did I get my name?
Like, how did your parents get that name for you?
I am not sure. I have not done a whole bunch of research into my heritage. Like, I know where my grandparents were born and grew up and all that and how we got to California and all that stuff. But as far as, like, further back, it's... My wife did that 23andMe, and she like started digging into her stuff, and like it was pretty wild finding out like where she came from and stuff.
Huh.
And so I'm going to do it next. I just haven't done it yet, so it's
Okay.
set up for me to do it. I just
Yeah.
haven't done it yet. So But yeah, other than that, like my grandparents on my mother's side were born and raised in New York and came out here from there. My grandparents from my dad's side was born and raised in Kansas and Missouri, and then came out here from there. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, then. Ooh. What's a common misconception people have about construction work?
That you that it's for the people who failed in school,
Oh, yeah.
right? So, you know, every time construction's brought up, you know what I mean? It's usually the kids who didn't graduate or the kids who didn't go to college or the kids who tried something else and failed and now had to lean back. Like,
Yeah.
it's not that way anymore. Construction is just like everything else. It's evolving, and it's evolving fast, you know? And that's all trades. It's pretty wild. Don't get me wrong. Out of high school, you can graduate and go straight into construction, but you could be really successful.
Okay,
Right.
All right. Yeah.
So if you graduate or, you know, after you graduate high school, to get into like any type of apprenticeship and go straight into the trades, you'll be making 6 figures within the first 2 years.
Dang.
Yeah. And I don't know of any other career where fresh out of high school within 2 years you can be making 6 figures.
Yeah.
Like, for real. I don't. Like, I'm sure they're out there, but they're probably pretty few and far between. So
Yeah.
construction makes the world go round,
Yeah.
and it is evolving just like everything else. And it's no longer for the people who had no other route to take, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of successful people in the construction world, you know, a lot. And
Yeah.
you know, there's a lot of money out there.
Have you ever had a horrible boss?
Oh, yeah, I've had, a lot, not a lot of them, a few of them. You know, for the most part, if you get on with a good company, the people that are running the work and the people that work at the company came up from the bottom, right? Now, if you get on with some of these companies that are kind of shady and it's, you know, it's the brother's boss and his nephews and stuff like that, sometimes the nepotism that is involved in construction companies will discourage you and discourage you bad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and those are some of the worst bosses I've had was, you know, the owner's nephew, right? Like,
Yeah.
this guy's telling you what to do, but then you turn around and ask him, you know, like
Yeah.
you ask him further and it's, well, that's not my job. It's your job. And it's like, well, you're supposed to be leading me, leader.
Yeah.
Lead, you know? But, you know, there are good bosses out there and there are bad bosses out there.
Yeah.
So it's just the luck of the draw, I guess.
What's the best boss that you can remember you had?
The best boss?
Yeah.
Oh, man. It has to be Mr. Paws for sure. No, I just kidding. Let's see. I worked not that long ago. I was working for a utility company, and one of my pretty good friends from high school, he was my boss.
Oh, what?
And you know, it was pretty cool. Like, we still got our work done, made the company a ton of money. I made a ton of money. Like, it was all good.
Yeah.
And when you're in a situation like that and you're progressing every day, the feedback that comes down the chain of command and then your boss being, you know, friends outside of work, like, that's like an ideal scenario. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It doesn't happen very often, but when it does happen, it's cool. So,
Do you end up having more fun during work time?
you know, I don't know if it's more fun, but it's more relaxing. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You're not so
Yeah.
tense every day. You don't have to worry about if you're doing the right things, if, you're getting enough done every day. If
Yeah.
number one in construction is always safety. And when you have a good group of guys under you, you don't have to try to be safe every day. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When you have a good group of guys that you've trained and you have good management that oversees it, it's something that just happens every day. You know what I mean? You get into a workflow, you can trust your guys, and you don't have to always be watching everybody's next step.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes sense. One thing I noticed too about people who work in construction, they always tend to wear orange in their casual clothing.
Right?
What's your favorite color?
Well, my favorite color is orange. It's, I also, my favorite color is green. I like orange a lot. The reason why I wear orange is because, I've worked in construction for 16 years. So even like this sweatshirt, I didn't buy the sweatshirt, but it was bought for me. So if I ever wanted to wear it on a construction site, I could.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, I could either wear it on a construction site or off. It's one of them sweatshirts that just kind of goes, And I always have the thought in my mind when I buy something, I rarely buy clothes that I don't plan on wearing to work. You know what I mean? Just because I don't really, like when I go hang out with my friends and stuff, usually at some point in the day, I'm going to be working on something. And so, like, everything to me is work clothes.
Okay.
And so when I go buy them, like, it's always in the back of my head. I try to keep the high vis colors.
Yeah.
So they can be worn on a job site. You know what I mean?
That makes sense.
Yeah. And when orange is one of your favorite colors, like, it just works out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So.
Especially the neon kind of orange.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is certain different shades of orange, right? But when you get into the high vis colors, they are cool colors.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I like them. So, I'm just one of those type of people that will wear it everywhere. Like, I don't just have to wear it to work. I'll wear it out to dinner. I'll wear it to baseball game. I'll wear it to jiu-jitsu practice. Like, it's all good to me.
Do you think that is a misconception of construction workers? Whenever you see someone out in like a restaurant or something and they're wearing something like an orange sweater.
To be honest with you, that is probably something that is pretty accurate. You know what I mean? If you see a guy like myself sitting in a restaurant eating and he's wearing a bright orange sweatshirt, he probably is either an active construction worker or at some point in his life work construction. You know what I mean? I don't know how many kids would just go to the mall or stores or whatever or Amazon and just order an orange sweatshirt, right? So, I don't know. That might be pretty accurate. But then again, somebody could just really like orange.
Yeah. Or it could become a trend at some point.
Right?
Then everyone
That's
will
what
have
I'm
to
hoping
follow
for.
it. All right. Ooh. What's the biggest mistake you've ever made on a construction project, and did you learn from it?
Oh, that's a good one. Yes, absolutely. So, a funny, not so funny story is I was working out at Fort Irwin. It's between Barstow and Apple Valley on the 15 freeway when you're headed to Vegas. It's a military base. It's way out in the middle of nowhere. Like you're on the 15 freeway and you make a turn at Fort Irwin Road and you go out into the middle of nowhere for an hour.
Yeah.
And then you finally get there.
I like how you just gave direction to a military base.
Yeah, it's out in the middle of nowhere, man. There's nothing around it. Like, it's pretty crazy.
Hey.
But we were building a hospital out there. And in construction, sometimes when the engineers draw it on paper, it doesn't exactly line up with what happens in real life, right? So we had set big switchgear in the basement of this hospital, and it was a multi-story building, right?
Yeah.
And every floor was a concrete deck that was 16 inches thick, right?
Okay.
So where we were setting the switchgear was in a different location than they had planned for it to be set. So we set it in place. Well, we have to bring electrical conduits out and through all the floors to feed sub panels on every floor, right?
Okay.
Well, where we ended up having to set the switchgear, there was no holes in the ground to bring our conduits through to pass through the multiple floors. Now, if we would have put it in the correct location, when the floor was poured, they put pipes in the concrete forms. So when they pour, there's a void in the floor. So it's, there's already a hole there for us.
Yeah.
But when everything gets moved, we didn't have that void in the floor that we could go through. So we have to get these big drills that stand up probably 5 feet tall. And there's two types. They either suction to the floor with a vacuum, or you have to drill anchors and set anchors in the ground and then anchor the drill down, because there's so much force trying to drill through concrete. If you don't have it, the drill will never drill through the ground. You know what I mean? It'll just sit there and spin on top. So I don't remember what style we had. Anyways, I was in charge of drilling these, 15 or 20 holes in the ground. And they're big holes. They're 3 or 4 inch holes.
Oh, dang.
And when you use a concrete drill like this, it's got a big carbide bit. It's diamond tipped. So it has to be harder than the concrete, right? So it's diamond tipped, but you have to use water with it, right? If you don't use water with it, it'll just waste the bit. It'll just grind it into nothing. So working above electrical high voltage switchgear, we were drilling holes, and I had an apprentice that was supposed to be down below in the switchgear room holding a bucket, catching the slugs as I drilled through, a 20 or 30 pound 4-inch round 16-inch piece of concrete is gonna fall, and I got this kid on a ladder with a bucket trying to catch him. You know what I mean?
What the heck?
And we have radios and stuff, and he knows which hole I'm drilling because we're going in an order, right? Well, we go to lunch or break or something. We come back and I'm drilling, and I go through the floor, right? I'm drilling, then all of a sudden I get through, and I hear oh crap, bang, boom, boom, and then there's a bunch of water that then goes through, right?
Oh no.
So the guy underneath is supposed to have a bucket, right? Hold it right at the floor. Slug falls in, all the water goes in, waits for the water, right?
Yeah.
Up top, I grab a vacuum, suck it all up. That way, no debris gets on top of the switchgear. We're all good. Well, I don't know what happened, but he wound up on the opposite side of where I was drilling for some reason.
Oh.
And, 30-pound piece of concrete or whatever, right to the top of this open switchgear, broke bussing, and it was a big mess. But yeah, it was a learning experience. You got water covering, $500,000 in electrical equipment, plus a piece of concrete falling through the top of it. It's not good. So, but yeah, I learned pretty quick. You always pay attention, to where you're supposed to be versus before you go to lunch and then when you come back. So it was a pretty good learning experience, but man, it was scary.
So how loud does it have, like an echo when it hit?
Oh
everything?
yeah, because picture this. Picture you're in a concrete room, right?
Okay.
Nothing else in there but a giant metal box up against the wall. Okay, and you take a 30, 40-pound dumbbell and you drop it on a metal box.
Oh god.
In a concrete room with nothing else. It's loud. It's loud, but yeah.
So everyone on the site heard it?
Oh yeah, there was inspectors there, the project foreman, superintendent. I mean, everybody was there pretty quick when that happened. So yeah, like I said, it was a learning experience. You know what I mean? Like, I look back at it now and I laugh about it, but then I was like, holy crap, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I could be responsible for a $500,000 piece of equipment, you know?
This happened at a military base too.
Yeah, at a military base, in a hospital. And it's like, once you know, there's certain standards when you do military bases, but then there's a whole nother set of standards when you do a hospital, right? But then when you're on a military base doing a hospital, it's like top, you know, like
Jeez,
their standards are tight as can be.
Yeah.
And mistakes don't happen very often on those sites, right? But when
Yeah.
they do, they make noise. And so yeah, it was a pretty interesting, you know, situation. But
Wow.
it all worked out.
I was not expecting it to be at a hospital at a military base too.
Right. Yeah, it's of all things, but
Yeah. All right. What kind of student were you in high school?
oh man. Do I have to answer this one? No, I was just kidding. I was an independent student. Let me think. How can I put this? I was smart, and I wasn't like a rule breaker,
Okay.
as in a bad kid.
Okay.
I did my work sometimes. When I started high school, I was a good student. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then as, you know, I got to be a junior and stuff, then I started slacking off, right?
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was like a rebel or against the rules or anything. It's just I was busy doing other stuff. You know?
Yeah.
I played sports. I wrestled, played baseball. And I would rather be at practice than doing homework. So I would get good grades other than the homework portion of it, right?
Yeah.
And plus, I had other interests besides schoolwork.
Okay.
So I tried to be I tried to teach myself certain things
Okay.
rather than just going home and being lazy and stuff. You know, like
Yeah.
today you have YouTube,
Yeah.
right? Like you can literally do anything. Like I could go home right now and well, probably not home, but I could probably go perform a surgery right now just watching YouTube videos. Like they're that intense. When I was going through it, there wasn't none of that. But I was very fortunate. The people I was surrounded by were my YouTube. You know, they were some pretty smart people. And so I always listened. You know what I mean? Like, if there was a conversation going on, I was listening.
Yeah.
Right. And I think a lot of times nowadays that is lost with kids is they don't listen as much.
Yeah.
You can learn a lot from listening and not saying anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's how I used to be. Is I would listen. I wasn't real loud or nothing during high school. I was just a normal kid, but I was constantly listening. It was the thing. And so I picked up a lot of knowledge along the way. That doesn't necessarily it isn't reflected through like the grades I got in high school,
Yeah.
but it's reflecting from where I was then to where I am now. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah.
So that's more of that's a better reflection of what I learned, how I learned it, and the discipline of me learning.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah.
it. I wasn't the best student. I wasn't the worst student. I'm sure if you were to interview one of my teachers now, I don't know what they would say. It probably just depends on which one you'd interview. But,
Yeah.
you know, I was the greatest kid to some and probably not the best to others. You know,
Yeah.
I was one of those kids. So, yeah.
But you listened all the time.
Yeah, I listen. You know what I mean? Like, that's one thing about me is I will always listen to whatever anybody has to say. Right. Everybody has the right to speak and to speak what's on their mind and speak their opinion, right?
Yeah.
I'm not going to take anybody's speaking power away. I'll always listen. And that's just how I've always been.
Oh. Well, I mean, that's kind of part of the reason I wanted to do a podcast too, was so I can learn from it too, to listen to who I'm interviewing too,
Absolutely.
because it's not authentic if I'm constantly thinking like, oh, hey, what's the next question going to be?
Right.
And I'm just ignoring what you're
Yeah.
saying the whole time.
No, and being engaged with somebody and being able to hold a conversation will take you far in life.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
Doing what you're doing now, the skills you are gaining just by even this conversation,
Yeah.
it'll take you far in life. If you learn how to have a professional conversation with somebody, man, you know,
Yeah.
the stars are the limit. You know what I mean? You can go as
Yeah.
high as you want to go. So,
And especially when you're listening into a conversation, the point of the conversation shouldn't be how do I change their mind to think what
Right.
I'm thinking. You need to be an open-minded person and actually try and understand where they're coming from.
yep,
And then you can see if there's a compromise there,
there you go.
which
And-
is definitely something that's missing throughout since probably
Society
COVID.
nowadays. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
All right. We got the last fun question, and then we got the final question.
all right.
If you had to describe your teaching style in one word, what would it be?
Oh, man. My teaching style, I would say...
This would be great because you got a whole class here right
I know.
now.
I'm waiting for the response. My teaching style, I would say relaxed but effective.
Okay.
So what I mean by that is I'm not a stickler for being uptight. If kids are talking, to get on them, no talking.
Yeah.
If kids are walking around, like if they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, like that's different. But like if the kids want to eat a snack in my class, I'm fine with that, right? If the kids want to have a drink in my class, I'm fine with that, as long as they're responsible. But as far as effective goes, getting my point across, right?
Okay, yeah.
So safety in construction is first and foremost, and that is what I make sure that every single one of my students understands when they come through that door.
Okay, yeah.
Also getting them ready for the workforce, right? Urging them to be there on time. Urging them to keep their deadlines.
Yeah.
Urging them to pay attention to the fine print, right? Urging them to work as a team. That's the stuff that I am most effective at. Okay?
All right.
Then I'm more relaxed, like I said. You want to eat a snack in my room? No big deal. Don't make a mess. Clean it up before you go, right? And make it look like you were never there. As long as you can do that, I don't mind if you eat a snack. Or have a drink, or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If we're working on something and you have a question for somebody and you get up and walk across the room to ask them a question, as long as they're not singing across the room or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with it. Sitting in my class, where I let the kids sit wherever they want to sit, as long as they can handle it. You know, if they want to sit with all their friends and hang out as a crew, like, I'm good with that. But once they start getting loud and disrupting other kids, then that's when it becomes an issue.
Yeah.
Basically, I will trust you as far as you will let me. Right? So
yeah.
the moment you show me I can't trust you, that's when things change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So,
So if Is there any word you can think of to combine relaxed and efficient together?
Mm.
Because first thing that comes to my mind when hearing all this
I don't
is
know.
cooperative.
Yeah. Yeah, cooperation.
Yeah, because then that
Cooperative. Yeah.
will, one, make you relaxed, and it's effective.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, that's right up the alley. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's exactly. That's
And
pretty good. I didn't think of
yeah,
that. So yeah.
that's the kind of the best thing you can get out of a teacher too.
Yeah.
Especially in high school.
Yeah, I try to be the teacher I always wanted in high school. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I remember some of the teachers I had, I couldn't even get up out of my chair to throw something away without having asked for permission.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then there were other teachers that just didn't even care if you showed up, and I try not to be that teacher.
Yeah.
But then I tried to not be the overbearing teacher either.
Yeah. So you find the balance in between.
Yeah, because let's be honest, you guys are all about to be adults.
Yeah.
And so I try to treat every single person that walks through my door as an adult until they show me I can't.
Yeah. And I think that's probably the biggest thing about CTE teachers from main subject teachers is main subject teachers will still treat you as a student, and CTE teachers are literally getting you ready for the workforce so that they have to treat you differently.
Yeah.
Which is probably what makes this place a little bit more fun.
Yeah, no, for sure, for sure. It's you got to remember everybody in the CTE program our goal is to get you ready for the next step in life.
Yeah.
Is to get you ready for work. And we can't do that by leading you down the wrong path. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We have to let you gain your own observations. We have to let you make your own decisions because that's who forms you, right?
Yeah.
I can tell you what to do all day long, but unless you're going to follow that, it ain't going to do no good.
Yeah.
So there's an old saying, you can, lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
Oh, yeah.
So, I feel our CTE program is pretty good with that.
Yeah.
So.
And I think it's only been here for like
A couple years.
Yeah. 'Cause I think
handful of years.
2017 this building was finished, and then they got all the teachers in,
Yep.
which
So,
I hear they respond pretty quickly too.
Yeah.
From all the CTE teachers I interview.
yeah. No, yeah, it's a good system. We got a good system going on. The faculty's good here, and I'm excited.
Yeah. I can't wait to see how this school is going to be in like 5-10 years from now.
Right. Yeah, with this being my first year at the program, I'm still learning the things I can and can't do. After I get a couple years under my belt, I think even my program will be totally different than what it is now.
Yeah.
If I had it my way, we'd be going on a field trip every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's out there. That is possible with how much stuff and how much with how much there is to gain in the construction world. We could go on a field trip a week, and
Yeah.
it could be very effective for the kids.
Oh, yeah.
You could learn more on one field trip than you can one day in a classroom. You know what I mean? So,
So because actually seeing the stuff in front of you is a lot different than just being typed on paper.
yep. Real world.
Yeah. All right. Well, we got the final question, and then we'll end it off there.
All right.
All right. What do you think it means to you to build a Bronco?
So, when I hear building a Bronco, that means to me is every person, situation, every building that person walks into, every conversation that Bronco has, every move that Bronco makes is all a part of creating somebody, creating the foundation for somebody.
Yeah.
To build a Bronco, you want to build a tough, smart, savvy,
Yeah.
but also a kind Bronco.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Somebody who's going to tell you the truth, but not somebody who's going to crush your soul,
Yeah.
right? You want them to have all the good qualities. So when I hear, to build a Bronco, that means every aspect of that kid's life that they encounter here on campus builds a foundation for that person.
Okay.
And so, we try to do the best we can.
Yeah.
And the construction CT program, I think, is an awesome place to start.
Okay. I think that's one of the best answers I've gotten for that, too.
Nice. Yeah.
All right. Well, that wraps up this episode. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you, Mr. Kinkade, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you to Mr. Nunez. Thank you for, interviewing me. And you're very sharp. I can see that. You know what I mean? They chose the right person to do these podcasts, and that's pretty cool.
Thank you.
You'll go far. Just keep going. You know what I mean? The more of these you get under your belt, the more experience you're going to have, more comfortable you're going to be in that seat. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to ask hard questions either. You know what I mean?
Hell yeah.
You got to put people on the spot. Get their true, get their true personality to come out. So, and I feel you're pretty good at that.
Yeah.
So
I would ask harder questions, but I know teachers maybe are not allowed to say certain stuff.
right. Yeah,
Especially if they're using school equipment.
Yeah, no, for sure. But you did good though. You did good with the questions that you asked me. They're effective and interesting stuff. So
All right. Well, half of that goes to me. The other half goes to ChatGPT.
right, it's all good. But no, you did a good job, man. Your program here is awesome.
All right. Thank you. I'm
So-
hoping this grows the program, too.
I believe it will. Yeah, for sure.
All right.
Keep
well,
it up.
Yep. Thank you for coming on.
All right.